Ubisoft.
I think I can spare a little bit of time.
I plan on taking a lot longer than that.
Ubisoft have found themselves having to apologise for essentially retconning the protagonists of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Before release, Ubisoft basked in the applause and the praise for allowing the protagonists of Odyssey so much choice that they could be whatever they want. Sexuality-wise, you could be straight, you could be gay, or you can be asexual and not partake in the hitting on of people, which is all that romance options are. It's just aggressively, constantly hitting on someone in a video game. Whatever your choice, you get to bone down with whoever you want, provided they're up for boning down, of course. Their latest DLC, Shadow Heritage, however, seems to undo that. Because, and here are spoilers, spoilers, turn it off if you don't want spoilers. Alright, that's it. If you're here now, it's up to you. I've given you enough time to grab your remote, or swipe off your phone, or click a mouse button, whatever it is you need to do. Right, here we are, spoiler territory. At the end of the DLC, your character settles down to have a baby. You go with the son or the daughter of Darius, and if you're Alexios, you go with the daughter. If you're Kassandra, you go with the son, and you have that baby. In order to facilitate the idea of a bloodline, that was the best way Ubisoft could think of to get around it, is to just not get around the idea of choices and whether people have been playing these characters as straight or gay or ace or whatever. They just barreled through it and canonically went with the straight option regardless, which isn't great, not just because of a representation issue, which itself is of course an important issue, especially since Ubisoft drew in all of that praise and basked in the glow of good feeling for promoting all of that choice, but that's the other thing. Players don't like having their player choice taken away from them, or at least overwritten, being told it doesn't matter. Did we not learn from the ending of Fallout 3?
Spoilers for Fallout 3! Spoilers for Fallout 3!
Where the ending essentially said that you didn't have a choice. You either had to be a scurrilous, cowardly bastard or the hero of the wastelands, regardless of whether or not you're friends with a super mutant who could have gone into the nuclear reactor that someone has to go into at the end of the game. Let's not even get started on Mass Effect 3. Remember the massive controversy over the ending there, where the implication was nobody's choices mattered. Can you imagine if the Mass Effect series also canonically forced their character into a relationship with someone? There would be a criminal investigation held against BioWare by the BioWare fan base. The common thread running through all these games is that player choice was a much lauded aspect. They were big on giving players options. And Gavin, Miracle of Sound, my Podquisition co-host, bloody good mate, pointed out that if Assassin's Creed Odyssey had not, before release, piped up all of this choice, we might not be in this situation right now. We probably won't be. If you weren't given the options to begin with, it wouldn't have been a major controversy to have had the character be whatever sexuality the writers wanted them to be. But they didn't do that initially. They didn't do that in their pre-release marketing. They didn't do that in the main body of the game. They didn't say these characters' directions, in terms of orientation, are our decision. That's the decision of the player. I know the AAA industry has gotten very used to giving players options, then taking them away and selling them back to people for money, but in terms of narrative structure, if you give players that choice, you're going to have a hard time prying it out of their fingers without a fight, without a backlash. It's an interesting spin, this Assassin's Creed Odyssey situation, on the concept of queerbaiting, which is the concept of claiming a character is gay outside of the work that character appears in. Blizzard has been accused of this with Overwatch characters, saying certain characters are gay when the game gives no indication of it. J.K. Rowling's been in the firing line for that, saying Dumbledore is gay, even though there's no clue about it in the books themselves. I don't know if she changed that in any of the Fantastic Dogs and How to Trick Them books. I know the last film that came out about that was criticised because they don't bring it up. I don't know what the story is there, but that's the concept of queerbaiting. And this is an interesting one because the confirmation is in the work, and then it's undone in the DLC, so it's like queerbaiting with just a lot of gay meat as the bait. It's like a reverse-engineered queerbaiting or something. I don't know. It's related, but it's not quite the same. Ubisoft responded to the situation. They have been rather sorry and apologetic about it, but, well, the DLC's already out, and they've made it canon now, and there are no plans to walk that back. I don't even know how they'd be able to at this point. You can't just walk back a baby. The baby can't even walk yet. Alexios/Kassandra, realising their own mortality and the sacrifice Leonidas and Mirin made before them to keep their legacy alive, felt the desire and duty to preserve their important lineage. Our goal was to let players choose between a utilitarian view of ensuring your bloodline lived on or forming a romantic relationship. We attempted to distinguish between the two, but could have done this more carefully as we were walking a narrow line between roleplay choices and story, and the clarity and motivation for this decision was poorly executed. As you continue the adventure in next episode Bloodline, please know that you will not have to engage in a lasting romantic relationship if you do not desire to. We've read your responses online and taken them to heart, so this has been a learning experience for us. Understanding how attached you feel to your Kassandra and your Alexios is humbling, and knowing we let you down is not something we take lightly. We'll work to do better and make sure the element of player choice in Assassin's Creed Odyssey carries through our DLC content, so you can stay true to the character you have embodied throughout. That's what Ubisoft said anyway. It does surprise me that they didn't cotton on to the potential for a backlash here. In the past few years, Ubisoft's been pretty damn good. Sort of more progressive narratives and diverse working teams, stuff like that. They're very proud of it. And equally, did you see how natural it was in that response for them to just say, "You're Kassandra, you're Alexios," because that's what they promised players before launch throughout the game. These are your characters who you got to decide things for, and then they take a massive life decision, a massive one, and thrust it upon you. Equally alarming for the fact that you can rebuke the character you eventually have the baby with throughout the DLC itself. So even if you're playing them as straight but they just don't fancy that person, well, tough luck. As Ubisoft said itself in the run-up to the release of the game, since the story is choice-driven, we never force players in romantic situations they might not be comfortable with. Well, an achievement/trophy for the end of the DLC called Growing Up, that will be changed, because that has some very unfortunate implications if you've been playing your character as gay, and then they move into a straight relationship, and as a result get told that they're growing up, as if it was a phase or something. That's very questionable, so they're going to change the name of that, but the DLC itself is going to remain the same, with Ubisoft of course saying that you can, I guess, wriggle out of it in the next DLC chapter, which is one hell of a way to sell more DLC. Download the Going Gay Again pack. Only $9.99. A very unfortunate mess, this, but one of Ubisoft's own making because of things they said, things they promised that they didn't follow through on. People are so used to straight relationships being the default in their entertainment that if that was there from the start, I don't think many people would have batted an eye. At the very least, they would have resigned themselves to it, but this, literally telling people they won't be forced into relationships and then forcing them into one, it's just not on, is it? It's boneheaded at the very best. And it makes me tut with my gay mouth like this. Ubisoft, that was me tutting there, not kissing Ubisoft. I don't know if that comes across in just audio, because you can't see me shaking my head and wagging my finger as well. I would never kiss Ubisoft. Hasn't taken me out on a date yet.